Hey everyone, Adam and Andrew yet again with It Takes Two Takes, here to talk about episode 2 for season 2 of Warrior. If you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to watch our review of episode 1 from this season of Warrior. And also, as usual, please subscribe. Show us that you like what we're doing. Show us that you're interested in Warrior. Let's have a discussion. Leave comments. You know what to do. We know what to do, Adam. We're going to talk about this episode. Where to begin? First of all, there's a lot of new things happening, new characters, new conflicts, a lot of exposition, a little light on conflict, combat, action, but certainly not lacking in terms of impactful moments in that department. But I think, if anything, maybe we could begin with, we have Assam and Young Jun trying to work their sort of opium hustle right now, right?
Right. Yeah, they're working to get get a kind of little side hustle going, and June flat out asks Assam why he's pushing it so much, right? And Assam comes up with an answer of just
I'm the one who lost that fight and let Mei Ling in, so I guess my agenda is to kick her the fuck back out.
Okay, I can get behind that.
doesn't really cut muster, I think, for the rest of us who are kind of watching all the machinations that are going on. So, but June buys it and says, okay, you just want to make up for the fact you lost and we're in this situation to begin with. All right, cool. And then that's when we meet a new character of Happy Jack.
Happy Jack doesn't look so happy.
He didn't bring happiness. He wasn't the embodiment of happiness, but it was
until he got his money.
Yeah,
and that's
he was happy about that.
And that's where they even call out.
Guess now we know what makes him happy.
It's an interesting little setup. They want the Happy Jack to not just sell them, they want to store them, and they kind of get screwed on that aspect.
They do kind of get screwed, but it was somewhat understandable in the sense that Happy Jack was kind of under fire. He was being watched. The decision on his part made sense, but it didn't stop from a natural conflict from occurring, considering they wanted their money back. And we had a interesting and well choreographed hallway fight scene with Young Jun, bringing out the blades again and slinging those up and down the hallway. And it was a good way to open the episode.
Jun has indicated he's not a kung fu guy, right? So give him a weapon or some knives, some sort of weapons. He's good, but he's not a kung fu guy.
He's sort of a ranged fighter in terms of combat. Absolutely. Yeah. So we have Happy Jack as a new character. I do want to get to Nellie, but before we get into that, a thing that I wanted to point out with existing characters was, I don't know if you felt this way, but it caught my attention. I feel like almost every episode of this show, we see Bill O'Hara constantly just being, it's always down on his luck. He's always on borrowed time. I mentioned it, I think, in the last episode where we recovered this, where we said, I just felt like life is going to catch up to this guy. There is no way he's going to be sustainable as a character, as a living human being in this world, the way that he operates. Yet, I don't know if you noticed this episode, it seemed like things were going on. He was kind of cheerful for O'Hara. Like he was having a good time with his wife. He's getting laid.
Other than the very beginning, we had to chase someone down for some money.
Back here, you bastard!
Right.
Yes, things seem to be going pretty good. While Lee seems to be on a downward spiral, O'Hara seems to be on an upward spiral. And so, it definitely is one of those, they're on different trajectories. Whereas last season, Lee was kind of like the bright, spunky rookie, and O'Hara was kind of the grumpy old guy. They've kind of switched as far as their personalities and attitudes a little bit. So,
I think it's interesting that Lee is now the one that's haunted by the past, right? And understandably so, from his past relationship, his past love. Whereas O'Hara, they kind of in the first season really built up this, the fact that he had committed this murder and it was really weighing down on him. And
we also find out Lee's kind of hooked on laudanum, right?
Yep.
And if anyone has ever seen the Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer movie Tombstone, around this time, laudanum was kind of a legal medicine, but was highly addictive.
Yeah.
And, we're getting a little bit of that in this movie as well.
Essentially just dropping opium into a drink, more or less, a concentrated sort of version of it. And yeah, he has a vision of his past love. He gets taken advantage of.
Mugged.
And it's kind of a theme of the show, is sort of being, the regrets in life and being haunted by your past. And Lee is being swept up in that. I don't know where his trajectory is going at the moment, but yeah, I thought it was interesting that they chose to offset the partnership of O'Hara, having this relatively, for O'Hara, happy episode, I guess.
Right. That they're still looking for the swordsman, right? That leads us a little bit into, I think, Chow a little bit, because last episode he kind of got screwed over by the cops because he wasn't naming who the swordsman was.
Right.
But they hinted at that Chow has a secret, and we found out that secret this episode.
Yeah. Chow is a kid.
With a white woman.
Yeah.
Last season they kind of already gave you the idea that he had an interest in white women to begin with already, right? He was that's absolutely the women he was hanging out with. He was, having sex with. He was definitely into the white women last season, and we find out that this season he's got a kid from it who he doesn't want to be known as dad.
What do you say?
Thank you.
Thank you what?
Thank you, Papa.
Not Papa. Friend. Just friend.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up to you because that struck me in the sense that it was interesting. Is he not want her to call him dad because he's trying to do right by her? He's trying to protect her from reality? Or is she a sign of regret to him? Does he not want her to be around? The fact that he's showing up, I think, means he cares, but it's sort of a complex dynamic, at least up to this point, right?
Yeah, I think a little bit as probably the racism and bigotry that comes with the Asian culture during this time frame. He probably feels it would be best if nobody knew that he was the little girl's father. That way she could probably lead a much more normal life. And it also probably is a little bit guilt because he's not there day to day. Because again, probably a little bit of protection at the same time.
So do you think it's not from a place of selfishness? It's purely him looking out for his daughter in this case? I
think it's a little bit of looking out for her is, I think, a big part of it. It's probably his life isn't one that he wants to drag her into because could make her a target also. Since he's kind of supplying things for everybody. If things go wrong, she becomes a great target to use as leverage against Chow, right?
I definitely like to believe that, and you absolutely could be right. I'm not sure which. It's hard to say at this point, but I'm leaning towards what you're saying as well. I think
Chow's never really come off as a bad guy, really. Right. He's in it for the money, but he's not really. He's never been one to just kind of come out as like he's a bad guy. He's just trying to survive in that middle space, which is really hard to do in this world. But moving on, there was another new character, right?
Yes. Nellie, who appears to be a character looking to help women in need, which
specifically
Toy's not a fan of.
Specifically not women in need, women who are being used in the sex trafficking area. Asian women in the sex trafficking business. The ones who are brought over and exploited against their will. And she seems to be on a crusade to free them, which Atoy has got issues with. But at the same time, Atoy's like, go ahead, talk to my girls. They're here of their own free will.
They choose this life. I give them job, bed, clean clothing.
Yeah, I think Atoy gets it, right? It's not like, I think she could at least recognize that Nellie's not out to sabotage anything or completely disrupt something. Like, I think Atoy has we've seen it, right? A level of sympathy, in some cases commiserating with these girls, really.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think, a toy takes care of her girls as long as they don't screw up, but she definitely doesn't mistreat them. She defends them, right? And she will continuously because it's her girls. Whereas the other girls that we saw when we first got introduced to this character were very much being misused, right? You understand
absolutely.
why she's trying to help them. We get it, right? A toy's girls are dressed nice. They're clean. They're taken care of. In this world of the late 1800s, an Asian woman really doesn't have much of a say in anything. She's an immigrant, which is being looked down upon by most of the country at that time. Because again, they're looking to try and get the Exclusion Act passed, and they're female, which females in that time frame did not have really any rights anyway.
Right.
But a toy is trying to still survive herself, but she's making sure her girls are taken care of. So I think it'll be an interesting dynamic between those two, I think, going forward. We really didn't get much of a toy in this episode at all. No, that was like the only interaction we really had with a toy.
She flashed yet another outfit, which was a little bit outrageous for the times yet again, but it's part of the fun.
Right.
So, but yeah, I agree. I don't know. Nellie could either be, I could see it going either way. I think you might be right. I think I could see them finding some common ground and in a weird way, kind of working together on certain issues. But I think at the moment there's going to be a certain level of kind of trying to understand one another, and that might kind of breed some conflict. We'll see.
Right.
So we talked about new characters. Let's talk about a returning character. It was a trachea in the hands of Zing after he rips it out of another man's neck and throws it at someone.
Well, we're starting to see a little bit in this case, leading up to this, is Mei Ling's tactics are very forceful. And her right hand guy is not as much. Right.
Yeah.
He is not as much. And
she's
so,
kind of, I feel like depending on which side you're on, she's either losing control because she's so paranoid and worried about the uprise of these other Tongs, or she's being progressive and getting ahead of things, depending on how you want to look at it.
Well, she wants to flip the power, right? She really wants to be, she wants to, ultimately replace be the top Tong of Chinatown. And so she's got to watch anything that she perceives as a threat to that, because she wants to make sure that, they progress to that upper echelon. At the same time, she's being a little bit more forceful in her tactics, right? And he tries to talk her down from it. She placates them, but says, hey, take Zing with you to go deal with this Tong that's stealing opium. And, what you think is going to be a nice friendly talk and negotiation with a little bit of intimidation turns into, a bloody fight with, necks being ripped out and stuff like that. But ultimately, Zing tells him, like,
when Mei Ling finds out about this.
You really think she didn't know what would happen? Huh? Why else would she send me with you?
And he's got a point, and I think he realizes that I got played.
Exactly. Like he knows exactly what's going on. He was there was a few nonverbal cues between the two of them, and it's obvious.
I'm thinking at some point that this episode made me feel like there might be a showdown at some point between Leon and Zing. Because Leon doesn't really like Zing very much.
Yeah.
And it just seems like at some point, because those two Tongs are gonna, though they're kind of got a truce, not really exactly, I feel like at some point it's gonna end up in a fight between Zing and Leon.
I could see that, actually, because one thing I was going to ask, well, we'll get to that in a minute, in terms of the threat of either Li Yang or Zing. I want to get back to that, but I never thought about the two of them fighting one another. I want to revisit that. I like that idea, because I always see either of them as sort of a threat to Assam, right? but the idea of maybe them possibly facing one another and eliminating one of them potentially before it ever gets to Assam.
Assam has never dealt with Zing yet, right? Assam's got no conflict with Zing right now.
Right.
To really have a reason to fight him.
Yeah.
That's why I felt like they kind of set up this little kind of standoff almost to start kind of foreshadowing maybe there will be something between them two. But
I like that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Because really another one that Assam's got a grudge with, it's still going to fight is Leary.
Yes.
And Leary didn't really do much from an action standpoint in this. We got more of his getting to know him better.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering that first episode, he basically set off an explosion and they kind of moved ahead a little bit. And you see the after effect of it, but he wasn't a huge, central part of the episode like he has been as of the last, couple episodes.
No, but how they used him in this episode was really good because they're, the first season, they didn't really humanize him very much, right? He's just the angry Irish guy who's tired of the Chinese taking the jobs away from Irish.
Correct.
And being a really strong fighter. They didn't really humanize him much in the first season. So I feel like these first couple episodes, they're really humanizing him. So you actually understand his motivations a little bit more and understand where he's coming from.
And you've got the character of Sophie sort of being the catalyst for that a little bit, kind of being the inspiration for him to like open up a little bit.
He recognized Beethoven.
Moonlight Sonata. She plays that inside the bar, which, by the way, I don't know if you caught this, Adam, we've talked about it, but the bar, the Notorious Banshee or whatever, it was the bar Banshee, which is really just a nod to the showrunner's previous Cinemax show. I thought that was interesting that they did that.
Right.
So
yeah, and then we see his frustration because we see him kind of being attracted to Sophie, who is kind of making sure he knows that she's not the goody-goody that he thinks she is. So we're definitely...
Maybe she knows that's not what he wants.
Well, she said she never finished finishing school, which makes her...
Which I suppose means I'm unfinished.
But at the same time, we then see that frustration later on when the bar is busy and they're playing one of the typical Irish tunes that he hears all the time, but that's not what he wants to hear, right? He's hearing in his head the Beethoven again, and that's what he really wants to hear. So we get a little bit more into him, and I think that's going to make things interesting. But he also finds out that this girl is a daughter of, her father was the one who owned the steel mill or whatever, steel mill or whatever, who had the heart attack at the end of the first season, right? So, which he had a heart attack when Leary and his thugs come to get revenge for the fact that coolies were being hired.
I think it's is it Mercer Steel? Either way, it's a steel factory that Assam is essentially utilizing a piece of in order to now store the opium. He's kind of utilizing what is it? Penny, right?
Right.
Penelope, yeah.
Yeah, the mayor's wife who runs the place, he cut a deal with her that the Hopway would act as protection with the ulterior motive that he was also going to use the place for storing his opium. Figuring that no one's going to look at the mayor's wife's place for opium.
Once again, setting up an interesting thread, right?
Right.
For the season.
And we see a lot more between the mayor's wife and the mayor also as far as conflict because he wants to ignore the fact that she is a major business owner, but she's not letting him, right? And that little meeting with all the other major business owners who were all actually listening to her more than the mayor, and he kept trying to dismiss her. We got more fireworks, I think, going to happen here soon between them two, I think.
I think we're going to have more fireworks between her and Assam as well, when inevitably, I'm sure, to some degree, there's going to be a threat to him being exposed or his whole operation being exposed on her business property, so to speak, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that's going to cause some conflict because they're definitely not acting like the little lovebirds this season.
No,
right?
Not at all. They have business to attend to. It's a bit of a chess match now.
She almost wants to have a little something, it seems like, but he's very standoffish.
Right.
I
can see that.
Very standoffish.
She just wants someone to respect what it is that she does and what it is that she stands for, which Assam is capable of doing, unlike her husband.
And
I think that kind of gets her turned on.
I think she has a little bit of feelings for him too.
Sure.
But Assam at this point is like, I'm done. Whatever. I've got my own plans. You're not really in them, other than I can use you.
Well, let's see. Let's see where this goes. We'll tell you. We'll talk about it, right?
Yeah. This series is not following the boys' pattern of lots of action, lots of action. Okay, we're gonna lull, and then lots of action, lots of action. This definitely
and then we're
started.
This one started on a skyscraper.
Right. This one started off as very much a lots of action story. So we'll have to see if it's just going to kind of do an up-down type of setup this season, but it's definitely not following the trajectory of what the boys did. Again, loving it. I enjoy this series. I can't wait for next week's episode. And yeah, I think I'm still interested in everyone else's thoughts. So leave your comments, share this video, and hopefully you're liking this season as much as we are. And until next week, this has been It Takes Two Takes.
Hey everyone, Andrew with It Takes Two Takes. We're playing some royalty-free music, so don't even bother Shazamming that one. We got videos over here I think you're going to enjoy, and there's a button over here I'm going to enjoy. Let's make this all work together, right? Please subscribe. Check out what else we have going on. Thanks for watching.